Anyway, so today we're going to talk about the hero's journey. Have you heard of the hero's journey? Well, if you haven't, or if you have, stay tuned. And we're going to talk about the hero's journey, what it is, how it can be used as a self-discovery tool, and how it's more important than ever during a pandemic and during some of these crazy times to know yourself better than you've ever known before. So stay tuned. Well, again, good morning. So, like I said, it is almost October, which is crazy. The summer has gone fast, even though we've all been stuck inside. Well, some more than others. There's in different states. Actually, in the Kansas City area, hasn't been too bad. You can get out, just wear a mask for the most part, and you can pretty much do anything except for big events. But it's not too bad. So anyways, my name is J. Scott MacMillan, and thank you for being here at Hero Life Hump Day Live. I'm a life coach and an author, and I help people get unstuck from life when they've hit that place, that road, that time in their life where they know there's more for them out there, and they haven't been able to figure out how to get there or really what they even want, but they know there's something more. I help people get a new perspective in life and realize that they are the hero of their lives. And this is my book called Be the Hero of Your Life. It talks about how you can uncover who you really are and give you the courage to face your fears, move forward, and to grab whatever that is in life that you really want in life. So today we are going to talk about the hero's journey, which really is the basis of my book. It's how it all starts off. It's the basic theme throughout the book. And I wanted to just come back and unpack it a little bit, just make sure that we're all clear what the hero's journey is, because it's a major part of my life. It's a major part of my book and my work. And I really think that in these times of pandemic, that knowing who you are really, really well is important, because that's the point where you can now make decisions on where you want to move forward in your life and how you want to deal with things like a pandemic. When I was going through some tough times, I was also studying filmmaking and documentaries, because I love to do videos and documentaries and filmmaking, and I was studying what makes a really good documentary, basically. And I came across the hero's journey in this guy named Joseph Campbell. And he was a mythologist back in the 40s, 50s, through the 70s, I think. And he had studied all the stories, all the myths, everything across the world as far as stories go, myths and text. And he realized that most all of the great stories of the world have one theme that it follows through the story, and that's of the archetype or the character of the hero that you follow through the story. And as you follow that hero through a story, it makes a really compelling, interesting story, and we gravitate towards that. And he just was really interested in that, and he realized that even the movies, a good movie plot follows that hero's journey theme. And so he was writing about this concept, and Hollywood picked it up as their main component for writing good movies. And so most all movies have a really classic hero's journey. I keep going like this for a circle, because the hero's journey is depicted as a circle and has 12 stages, and we're going to look at all those stages today. But Hollywood realized that if you put those 12 stages into a good story, that it really makes a compelling story that people love. And so it's the baseline for all stories and all movies. But it also can be used as a self-discovery tool, because it really is the story of our own personal lives. That's where I found it so interesting, because as I was learning about it to create documentaries, I also learned that you can take it and use it as a personal structure. And just real quick example, a hero has to face hero in the movie has to usually face their fears or face some big adversary or situation that they've got to overcome or kill off or whatever to get past them to move in to find the treasure or whatever the part of the movie or the story that they need to conquer and win. That's usually the concept of a story. And that we have to do the same thing. There's always something inside of us that we're fearful of or that's holding us back. And if we really want to move forward in our lives, we've got to face that fear, conquer that fear, and move forward in our lives. So at a very simple level, that's how it's very similar. So what I did at the time was there was these 12 stages. So let me put up this graphic. These are the 12 stages of the hero's journey. And as I was learning about this, I thought, well, what if I put my life into these 12 stages of the hero's journey? And what would that look like? So you can see here that you start off with the ordinary world as stage 1. That's the setup, like in a movie, that is the status quo. That's where the movie begins. It's usually before the hero or the character in the story of the movie knows that they're a hero or anything's going on. It's their status quo. They're just living their life, hanging out. They don't know that there's any adventure, anything going on. They're just doing their thing. So it's the setup of the movie. And then stage 2 is the call to adventure. This is when in a story or a movie that something happens to them or there's a calling or a knowing, but usually in the movies it's something catastrophic or something that happens to them that puts them in a completely new perspective, and they've got to go out and be out of their comfort zone and to be on their journey. It's this call to adventure that gets them ready to force them to come out there. So stage 3, though, is refusal of the call, because we're all afraid of change and we don't know what's on the other side there, so we don't want to go. So in movies, there's usually a point where the hero says, I don't want to be a hero, I don't want to do this, get somebody else to do it. So for any Star Wars lovers, I always use Star Wars because I love Star Wars. But any good superhero movie has the same thing. But in Star Wars, Luke, in the very first, or I guess the third movie or fourth, was on the planet Tatooine. He was working for his aunt and uncle. He was young, but he knew that there was something more for him out there. So that was actually his first call to adventure, this knowing that he wanted to join the Resistance and fly X-Wings, right? And so he is searching, knowing that there's more for him out there. So that's actually the first call to adventure. But then what happens is his aunt and uncle get killed by the evil empire, right? So something catastrophic now has happened. His home is destroyed, his aunt and uncle are dead, he's got nowhere else to go. He's forced now out into his journey. And so he's going to meet a mentor, which is stage 4, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi, who says that he would teach him how to use the Force and become a Jedi Knight. So we went from ordinary world, Luke just hanging out on the planet, being a moisture farmer, working for his uncle, to a calling and knowing that there was more out there for him, to his aunt and uncle dying. So now the call to adventure, the universe has forced him out of his comfort zone. Now he has to go out. He refuses the call. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be a Jedi Knight. And he tells Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's not for me. I don't want to do this. So he's meeting the mentor, refusing the call, and then finally he decides, okay. So he crosses the threshold in stage 5. So here's stage 5 here. Crosses the threshold, and now he is out on his journey. So that's the first 5 stages of the hero's journey. And that is really what's called the preparation phase, because that all of those stages, the first 4 stages, are preparing to go onto the journey. I haven't gone onto the journey yet. So again, how does this apply to us? So for us, we live in the same situations. There's always something that's happened in our life that we could go back and we could think about this and we could say, look, that was a significant thing that happened in my life. And you probably changed, you created some views on life, you created some beliefs around a certain event. And so when you go back to that event and you look at it just before, it's like, just before it happened, what was I doing? That was your ordinary world. And so that's a good way to set the start of what could be your hero's journey. So what's my ordinary world? And then what happened? What event happened that forced you out of your comfort zone? Was it a death in the family? Was it an illness on your part? Was it did you get laid off from work? Was it a sibling maybe that left or passed away or something? It could be anything that was traumatic for you or a big deal in your life. And it doesn't have to be a catastrophic thing. It could be you left to go to college, and your ordinary life before was, you were in high school, you're hanging out, living with mom and dad, and now you go to college, and all this whole new world opens up for you. That could be a call to adventure. And now your journey starts. So when I work with clients, I typically ask them to go back, try to think of an event or a situation that happened in their life, whatever age, could be young, not so young. Mine started when I was 40, my main hero's journey. Even though there were things significant that happened before, that was the most significant period that I chose to document my hero's journey, my personal hero's journey, starting at the age of 40 up to about 53 or 55. So about 15 years was my journey, but it could be anything. And then, so I asked people to pick a time in their life and start there. And what was I doing before this event happened? That's your ordinary world. Then something happened. That's your call to adventure. And then if you think about it, you've probably refused the call. You probably said, well, I don't want to change. I don't want to do this next thing or whatever. But you're really forced to. And even if something doesn't catastrophically change your life, like let's say you're in a tornado or something and your house gets blown up and now you need to rebuild, so you're in this whole new world trying to figure that out. You may just have a calling, a knowing. You've had this life and it was just unfulfilling, and you have this knowing that there's something more. But you refuse the call because you're like, well, I don't know what it is. And so you refuse the call, maybe for many years. I refused the call for about 10 years. My first call to adventure was in the shower when I was about 41, and I'd had all sorts of health problems. And I had this voice in the shower one day that says, you're not living life right. This is no way to live life. Something you're doing is not right. And I realized at the time that I needed to change. But I refused the call because I didn't know what or how. And so I just I don't know what you're talking about. But the universe continues to remind you if you don't answer the call and go take your hero's journey. Okay. So the next part of the journey is, so that's the preparation phase. So I break these down into 3 separate phases. And you'll see also that I've got up here in this little blue box here, the ordinary world. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you've got the ordinary world on the top half of the circle, and you've got the special or unknown world on the bottom half. The ordinary world is that part of life and everything that you understand. It's your status quo, basically. The second down here is where you're in your journey and you're in this unknown world. So you're having to learn new things. You're out of your comfort zone. All right, so we talked about these first 4. So the next one then is what I call the journey phase. So now that you've crossed the threshold in 5, you're now in 6, 7, and 8. So it's tests, allies, and enemies. The approach, number 7, ordeal, death, and rebirth. So this is where in the movies, the hero now is in the middle of their journey. They're fighting the bad guys, or they're fighting the dragons and the ogres, right? And they are conquering these obstacles that are in their way. And along the way, they're learning new skills. They are gathering new equipment or weapons or whatever that would be. They're gathering allies, people to be on their team. But they're also seeing who their enemies are. So they're going through life and figuring things out. You're collecting, these are my pals, these are my buddies that they can hang with me and help me. These people I need to be aware of. So you're learning all of this. You're approaching in 7, you're approaching finding the reward. You're, again, gaining skills. And ordeal, death, and rebirth is really just, again, a really serious, big challenge in your life that you've got to overcome, or in the movies, a big challenge that they have to overcome. And then then you cross into the return phase, these last 4, which are the reward. So the cool thing about the hero's journey is stage 9 is the reward. It's conquering. It's fighting that final battle and winning the treasure in the movies. for us, it is have gone through this journey. Let's say we got laid off from work. That was a catastrophic event that put us into this unknown world. And this has happened to a lot of us, including me, where, everything was wrapped up in your job, and you'd been there for, 15, 20 years. I'd been with Sprint for 16 years before I got laid off, which was part of just putting me out in this unknown world where I had to go figure new stuff out, right? And so it's significant that the reward comes at stage 9, because you still have 10, 11, and 12 to go to finish the hero's journey. So basically what this means is you've learned the lessons through parts of this journey, you've gained some skills, you've come a long way, and you've found what you think is it. So let's say you got through the layoff, through job searching, and there was ordeals here and there, and you finally landed this perfect job. And you think, okay, wow, I've gotten through that whole hero's journey, I've got my new job, now I'm done with that journey. Well, you're not, because the universe is going to test you one more time. And if you think about it, in all good movies, once the hero has the thing, they then are trying to then return back home or to enjoy the reward or whatever it is, and something else happens. Somebody else tries to steal it, or something bad happens again. They've got to redo all of conquering whatever that was, and secure the package, the treasure, and get back home, and then do whatever they're going to do with the treasure. Excuse me. So for us, is whatever lesson we think we've learned, you've got this new great job, whatever, something else is going to test you before you really have this. So either maybe somebody else is going to try to contend maybe that you shouldn't have this job, or there's a colleague that's jealous and they're going to try to take you out, or maybe you lose that job. I've heard lots of people that have that happen to them. In my case, I started my own businesses, but they failed. And so that wasn't a challenge. It really took me 4 or 5 years to really get to the point where my businesses were successful. So even though I thought that I had created my new business and that I had found the reward, I still had more challenges to go before I really finished that journey. So you've got 9, 10, the road back. Resurrection is usually in there. That's where some big catastrophic new challenge happens. And then once you get that, you finally get to stage 12. You return. Now you basically have created the skills. You've got the wherewithal now, because you've gotten through that whole journey, learned all this new stuff, met these new people, gained some other allies and mentors, gained knowledge, gained skills, and now you become a mentor on your own, because you've really gone through that challenge. And now you can help other people that are just starting out on their journey and help them out, which is what I'm doing now by helping people understand that they can get unstuck and use this hero's journey format is their metaphor through life to get unstuck and to know themselves better. Because after you go through this journey and you've gone through all these stages, you know yourself better. You know now what these events that happened meant for you. And so you look back on these events and you say, okay, well, this is why I behaved this way, or I refused to call for so long and I couldn't face my fears, but I finally did. And that was one of the biggest things I want to talk about, is that if we are fearful in today's pandemic and all the crazy stuff that's going on, that by using the hero's journey, we can understand ourselves better than we ever have. We can go back and realize that, you know what, there were times where I had some really tough stuff going on in my life, but I overcame it. And I did it before, and I can do it again now. It gives us that strength, that power to know that we've done it before. Now, it also shows us very specifically where we failed, if you will, where we couldn't face our fears, where we got really, really stuck and the world may have taken us over, or we had some bad things happen to us in our lives. But we look then, and maybe initially we didn't handle it so well, but we learned the lesson. And if the lesson didn't get learned then, you can go back and look at it and say, you know what, I wish I'd have, if I could do that over, I would have handled that differently. Now, I'm not a big proponent of going back and saying that, I wish I could change all these things in my life, because I believe that everything that happened for a reason, and you learn the lesson from it. Sometimes the lesson is, boy, I waited way too long to get my stuff together and get past that fear. which happened for me. I mean, I spent many, many years in just this fearful kind of time in my life. And I wish that I had gotten out of there earlier. But everything was a learning tool for me, and for you too. And so that's what this does. And so when you do this in a very systematic way like that, you understand what happened in your past, how you dealt with it, what beliefs and concerns and points of view and judgments that you created from that. And typically what happens is that at some point during that, and it could be earlier, and a lot of times it's early in your childhood, that you create these limiting beliefs. These beliefs that you needed to create at the time because you were a child and there was something happening and you needed to protect yourself with whatever it was. And usually it's a belief that this kind of thing's never going to happen to me again, so I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do that. And then we become adults, and now that whole situation is completely gone and different, yet in the subconscious, we've locked those limiting beliefs in there. And a lot of times they come out now that we're adults, and they sabotage us, and they get in our way of where we want to go and what the goals that we want to do in life. So by going through the hero's journey, not only do you understand who you are better, the good, the bad, the indifferent, you know that you were a hero at some points in your life. You know that there are times that you failed, but you got back up on your horse, or at least you got to this point. And there are things that you created in your life at some point that were limiting beliefs based on the events that happened that you've carried forward and that are sabotaging you. And sometimes you can look back on those and say, well, I guess they made sense, or I guess I understand now why I behave this way as an adult, because that thing that happened in my past, I created these beliefs around that and I've carried that forward. They don't make sense now, so they're not really real. So that's really helpful in trying to help understand. So if you're fearful now and you're in this spot or this situation where the pandemic is you really on edge, you're fearful for your income, you're fearful for your health, you're fearful for, what are you going to do because your kids are not in school and how do you take care of them? I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. The future of the economy, the future of the health, what's going to happen this winter. It can make us all just want to just roll up in a cocoon, go back to bed and just call it a day. But that's not going to get us anywhere, right? And so by knowing that you're the hero of your life, you've been the hero, you can do it again. And that really, it's just a matter of accepting that we're all on this journey now, this new journey, and that there's going to be ups and downs, but we're going to move forward and we're going to be fine. And if bad things happen or rough situations happen, they're going to be learning experiences for us to move forward. Wow, okay, so I zoomed through all this, but I can get talking on this and I can just get on a roll because it's a big part of my life and my work, and I love using this to help people understand and get some new perspectives on life. And in the book, and when I coach people, we talk about movies. What's your favorite movie? And we can dissect. And I go in the book, each stage I say, well, here's a movie that reflects this concept. So it's kind of fun because everybody can relate to movies, and all movies have the hero's journey format built in. One thing that I want to mention here is that sometimes when you hear the word hero or the hero's journey, it can sound masculine. It can sound like, well, a hero is a masculine character. But it really isn't true. I understand that maybe when somebody sees the hero's journey, they think, well, does that work for women? Or are we on the same thing? And absolutely we are. Because hero is actually, in the context of the hero's journey, the word hero is actually an archetype. An archetype is basically a mental construct that has really been passed down through all generations that we instantly know. So when somebody says king or queen, those are archetypes that you know what that means. You know what the queen archetype means: a woman, matriarchal, power, and king, patriarchal in its power. Hero is another one, and it doesn't have anything to do with gender. It's that feeling of, I can do it. I've done it. I've learned the lesson. I can conquer the situation. It's the empowerment feeling. It's not anything to do with gender. hero being male, and then heroine being female. So I worry about that a little bit, because the concept of the hero's journey, and once people understand the idea and the concept behind it, they get that it's not a feminine, masculine thing at all. It's the concept of how I feel, and I can do this. I can take control of my own life, and I've conquered whatever issues are in my life. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But it does apply really to everyone's lives, because it's universal. We go through life. We go through ups and downs. We're all human. We do that. This is just another way to view it, to understand it, to look at it. And the cool thing about this is that this isn't just some new concept that somebody thought up out of their brain. This is really, since the existence of time and when people have been writing and talking about stories, this archetype, this theme is universal, and it's been around forever, because all the old stories, all the myths, all the great books, the great religions, everything follows this format. And say we're all the same. We all have our journey. We all have this hero's journey that we all go through, and everyone's different. And it is fascinating when I work with clients. Everybody's got a different one, and you can have multiple journeys, of course. Some can be really small. Mine was a span of 15 years. And I do like to encourage people to use a larger span of life, something that they learn this nice arc of lessons from. I could break this down and say in 1 year I had all these little mini hero's journeys, and it's true, but the big picture of learning, going from just broken and not understanding what I was doing to my body, all the stress I was putting on it, to understanding all these things that then happened through my life for this 15-year experience, really was my big hero's journey. And the culmination of that was really understanding, because I'd been through lots of different jobs, and I had to go through a divorce, I had to go through different health issues, and it really wasn't coming out of that, writing this book, realizing I really wanted to be a life coach and help people, because I just knew there were a lot of people like me that had the same scenario, that were stuck in life. And when I found this viewpoint of it, it was so healing for me. And when I started to talk to other people, they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So that was my hero's journey. Once I became a life coach, I wrote the book, I thought I was done with the hero's journey, but I wasn't finished. And that's the cool thing about the hero's journey, is that just when you think you've figured it out, there's more for you. There's another challenge. And the challenge was simply, I had to be successful through it, because I'd started other businesses that weren't successful. And it took a year or two sometimes to understand that. So for me, it was to become successful, to get clients, to get people buying the book, to really know that I'm making that difference, and to own the fact that I'm a life coach. Because when you first start off, you can say you're a life coach. I said I was a life coach, but I didn't have a lot of clients. I wasn't making a lot of money. But it's not about the money, but it's now I know that I'm making differences in people's lives, and that's where it gets real. So now I'm on to my next stage. So now that this part of my hero's journey, that part of my hero's journey has finally come to full circle, I really am on my next hero's journey. So I'm back to my status quo is now, or my ordinary world. Now I'm going through the next stages. So it's always a circle. We finish one, we start the next hero's journey. But we do so with so much more knowledge, so many more skills, so much more, that this journey could even be more difficult, or it'll be different. But look at all the stuff I've learned. So you take in all your skills and everything into the next journey, which is a wonderful feeling, actually. So let's see. I think I've covered everything. I think to wrap it up, the key for me is to know that during these hard times, that we've done some really powerful, amazing things before in our life. So if we're stuck now, we're stuck in fear, or we're having a rough time, or we've lost our job, or there's some bad situations that have come out of this, our health even, that we can know that we've been heroes before in our lives, and that we can do it again. And that by using the hero's journey concept, we can unpack our life and understand that, there were times where we got stuck, but there were times where we've come through this. And even if we're stuck right now, just to know that yourself better? What happened in the past that gave you or these certain beliefs? And maybe you are still stuck in those beliefs now, and you haven't finished your first hero's journey, and you're stuck there. And you're stuck now because the pandemic has really got us confused and a lot of unknowns, right? The key is to, admit that, but know that there's a method, there's a path. And a lot of it always comes down to facing your fears. And it's hard. I refused the call for 9 years. But I didn't get to where I wanted to be. And it's on the other side of fear, really, that where life gets good. And you also know that when things are under turmoil, and I think this is universal for us now, when things are like chaotic or stressful and in turmoil, you know you're just on the other side of that is freedom, is breaking through, is newness in a better way. We know, I think we all know that right before the worst part of it, we're stressed out and everything, is the breakthrough that we're going to have, that now we can find the life that we really want, or ride that wave of change to do the things that we've always wanted to do but just we're afraid to. And again, what do we got to be afraid of at this point? We're in so much change. We're in it anyways. It's happened. We're in the change. We might as well use it as an opportunity to ride the wave of change into something new for us individually, and I think as the world, for all of us. We're evolving. This is an evolutionary event. And I mean that more in the conscious way. How are we going to use this to change the way we behave and think and feel? There's so much divisiveness now and craziness out there, especially in the United States. This isn't helping us. But obviously it's this chaos that's happening because something's going to break free. And I think on the other side it's going to be much, much better. So that's my hope. Anyways, well, thanks for hanging on with me. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Adriana, for your comments. And I appreciate this. This hero's journey concept is really my thing. I love it. Can talk about it all day long. If anybody would love to talk more about that, would love to see what their hero's journey looks like, you can pick up a copy of the book. The book definitely walks you through that. Or PM me, DM me, connect with me, and I'd love to take you on your own hero's journey and guide you through that so that you understand that you are the hero of your life and how you can use that to get to the next stage that you want to get to. So, without further ado, I am going to sign off. Have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday on Hero Life Hump Day Live. See you, everybody.